Today is May 3rd, 2026, and for Teisho this morning, my tentative title is The Habit of Awareness. And I'm going to be talking about habits. It's a favorite topic. I guess I may have a habit of going to it quite frequently. And I want to start out with something the Buddha said. I think almost every workshop, at least when I'm leading them, I trot this saying out. The Buddha said, as irrigators lead water where they want, as archers make their arrows straight, as carpenters carve wood, the wise shape their minds. This practice, this ancient practice, is designed to change the way we use our minds. We can't just make our minds up, we're going to be this way or that way. I'm going to be more loving. I'm going to be a kind person. I'm going to be an energetic person. Doesn't work like that. Anybody who's tried to adopt some new attitude or way of being inevitably runs into difficulty because we've already been programmed. We come with some pre-programming right out of the gate. And as we grow up, as we're raised and integrated into society, so many things get baked in. Some of them good, some of them not so good. The wise shape their minds. Our minds are always going to be shaped. It can be done with wisdom, or it can be done with neglect. There's an author named Charles Duhigg who wrote a book on habit, and unfortunately I forget the title. But what he says is that what he points out is that so much of what we do is on automatic pilot. When you think about it, when you walk downstairs, when you move through a crowd of people and pick your way through, you're not thinking about it. You just do it. It all plays out. It's kind of amazing, actually, how well we can negotiate difficult situations. Charles Duhigg says, the true expression of our character is what we do habitually. That's kind of what we are. Our ways, our little ways. Reflexive kindness, reflexive resentment, reflexive joy, reflexive sorrow. If you watch yourself, it's impossible to know where things begin. Just deciding to move your arm, raise your hand. Where does that come from? Actually, scientists know that initial impetus, that so-called decision, happens way before we're aware of it. And so much of it is guided by what we've done before and what we've thought before, how we use our mind. It's alarming and it's promising. We have the ability, like archers who make their arrows straight, like carpenters that carve wood. We have the potential to shape our minds in a way that improves our lives and that improves the lives of everyone around us, everyone we come into contact with, because we're all enmeshed in this together. So anyway, it's always difficult for me if I'm using a book as a basis of a teisho because there's just too much there. And I'm not going to try to, in any way, to summarize all of Charles Duhigg's book. But I want to bring up a case that he trots out really early in the book. It's actually one of two or three. And this is a fellow whose name was Eugene Pauly. He was some sort of scientist working, I think working to some extent with computers. Anyway, in 1993, he all of a sudden didn't know who his son was. His wife mentioned that his son would be coming over, and he said, "Who's that?" A little alarming. And then he proceeded to get very, very sick, projectile vomiting, got him into the hospital, and what they discovered after drawing some spinal fluid is he had a raging case of viral encephalitis. And of course they gave him antibiotics, and he did recover from that, but in the process, before the infection could be tamed, it had destroyed much of his medial temporal lobe. So part of the brain down in the what's called the primitive brain, down in the cerebellum. Down with the basal ganglia. And when he was finally out of the hospital, he had no memory of the past 20 years. And he could still talk with people and appear pretty normal, but if you pressed him on anything, he couldn't remember anything. He had the memory of a goldfish. Actually, I'm told that goldfish have memories. So he didn't even have the memory of a goldfish. I have to say, as I get older, and I know it's only going to get worse, my memory is pretty damn slippery. I think I'm here giving a talk, but how I got here, I have no idea. Well, for this guy, for Eugene Pauly, that really was the case. There was one case when they were working with him where they asked him if he knew where the bathroom in his house was, and he said, "No, I don't know." And then a little while later, he got up and went to the bathroom and came back. So how did he do that? All these things that he didn't know, and yet he was able to do them. There was a real concern that because he had no idea where he lived or what his house looked like, that if he ever wandered outside, he would never find his way back. And so his wife kept a really close eye on him, and he would go out. He'd bring back strange objects, pine cones and whatnot, and he would inevitably find his way back to his house. But if you asked him, "Where do you live?" he'd say, "Gee, I don't know." And then he'd go home. So what was going on there? Basically, he was negotiating the world with the knowledge, if you can call it that, in this small part of the brain where we basically store our habits. Habits are formed not in the hippocampus where memories are stored, but in the basal ganglia. There were some studies done at MIT in the 1990s, so this is about the time that this guy had his illness, where they had rats negotiating a maze, and they had them all wired up so they could watch brain activity. And when the rats were learning the path, they had to go down a hallway and take a turn to the left, and there they would find a chocolate bar, which they enjoyed, and then make their way back. And there was all kinds of brain activity as they sniffed around and sort of found their way, got the reward, and came back. But over time, the brain activity lessened and lessened as that task of finding their way to the reward became habitual. It started to be performed in a deeper level of the brain, and a lot of the higher brain activities were able to shut down, which is how nature designed us. So much that we do without having to think about it. And that can be good, that can be bad. Basically, the way it's explained is that we function by chunking action sequences. It's kind of a weird formulation. Seen other places, writers have called it modules. We have basically little scenarios that we can just deploy. It's like a computer subroutine maybe. And a lot of what we do is that. Here's an example. If you need to learn to drive a car, my granddaughter is just going through that. Usually when people learn, there's an accident or two that happens. Happened with my kids, happened with my granddaughter, it happened with me. You start driving this thing and it bumps into other things. But say you're backing out of a garage. I've only hit 2 cars backing out of driveways in my life. Now I have a camera. I love my backup camera. Saving lives. But when you learn to back up, it's kind of, you're looking around. Where do I go? What happens when I turn the wheel this way? Because now I'm going backwards. It's complicated, and I'm sure the brain is very, very active. But now it's easy. You've done it a million times, and it just unfolds. I had a friend, mentioned this before, was driving down to Florida. He was in Ohio, and then the next thing he knew, he was in Tennessee. He didn't know how he'd gotten there. He just spaced out, but he still knew how to drive. Probably almost as safe as an AI. There's an Israeli-American psychologist named Daniel Kahneman. People may have read, I think he's written several books. One of them is called Thinking Fast and Slow. And in it he says, odd as it may seem, I am my remembering self, and the experiencing self who does my living is like a stranger to me. It's true for all of us. It's a mystery. It's a fascinating mystery. We think that we remember things. We decide whether we're going to do something or not based on our memory of what we did. Actually, that's been studied. And there's something called the peak end rule, which is when you've had some experience and you remember it, you don't really remember like a average of how pleasant or unpleasant it was. You remember the peak of it, the peak joy or the peak pain, and you remember how it ended. And it's really pretty much that determines whether we say, yeah, I'd like to go back to Hawaii again, or we think, well, that was a waste of time. I'd like to go back, just speaking for myself. Which is interesting because the end of that vacation was an endless plane, 4 different different planes got us from Maui to Hawaii to San Francisco to Chicago to Rochester. We left in the morning in Hawaii and rolled into Rochester in the morning here in Rochester. Wrecked. But I'd do it again. In fact, when do we leave? They actually used this phenomenon, the fact that we just basically have a pretty crude way of deciding whether something's worth repeating or not, with colonoscopies. Nowadays, when you have a colonoscopy, they usually make it so there's no pain involved. They kind of knock you out, unless you really ask to be left awake, which is great because if you do that, then you can watch the screen and watch the the probe go through the tunnel, which is pretty cool. When I first, I've got to wax captions here. Back in the day, they used to do a sigmoidoscopy. So this was done in the doctor's office, and the doctor had a scope that he was looking through a little, lens, and you would bear up as best you could as he went around the bend. There's a bend they have to get around in order to see what they need to see. But they only go so far, and so they could do it in the office. So the first time I had that done, my doctor, a guy named Tim Quill, really a great doctor, was willing to let me try to bend around backwards and be able to look through the scope myself. Because I always kind of wanted to, but I couldn't. It was just I'm not enough of a gymnast to be able to take it around. But nowadays, it's all on a screen, and so if you've been given a gentle enough sedative, you can actually watch. Anyway, back when this was done in the cruder form that I initially encountered, it was a bit aversive. It was a little painful, and they found that people would be more likely to repeat the procedure, to come back, and also to remember it with less resentment, if they, at the very end, left, after they'd done what they needed to do, if they left the scope in for a little while, for a few minutes, and then took it out. Because then your end experience wasn't so fraught. And it actually made a difference. They interviewed people and they recorded when people would come back and do it. So we're really at the mercy of how things play out in that way. And our judgment is not the greatest. It's amazing how we keep doing things that have bad results again and again and again. One of the things that they discovered with the rats going through the maze was that you could, if you took the reward away, or if you put it somewhere else, they would lay down new habits. The old habit would seemingly be extinguished, but the minute that reward was put back in the original place, they would pick it up immediately. Because the habit doesn't really go away, it's still encoded. There's still the neurological basis for whatever that action is. And so that plays out in all kinds of habitual and addictive behaviors. They used to say in AA that all you need to do is pick up another drink and you'll be right back where you started. And there's actually a scientific neurological reason for that. It's all baked in there. No matter what it is that we've seemingly overcome, we can find ourselves right back in the middle of it if we take that first drink Or if you may have managed to stop going to Starbucks every day, but if you go back just once, then all of a sudden you're going back again and again and again. Some of the habits are just a little annoying or a little expensive, and others can be tragic. It works for good and for bad. It's a lot of what we do in the early stages of Zen practice is trying to get ourselves, somehow or other, get myself to get on the mat every day. It's not easy. Some people do it, but most people, I think, have a bit of a struggle to do that because Zazen isn't easy. It's not always pleasant. Have to sit still. Can't just let ourselves drift into pleasant daydreams. Well, we can, but we're trying not to. So you find that whole habit pattern plays out. If you're sitting every day, then it's easier to sit every day. The more you do it, the easier it gets. But when you slip out of the habit, maybe you're traveling or something else happens that makes it hard to do, all of a sudden it takes a little bit to get it back. There are a lot of habits which are just habits of mind, just ways we feel, ways we react to our daily activities. One of the most painful ones to watch play out is our impatience. I always like to trot out the example of being at a red light with a bunch of other cars, and the light's going to be red for a while, and then you see people all of a sudden inching forward a few feet and jerking forward again. Everybody's ready to go. It's so pleasant just to sit there and wait till you see the light turn red. And then despite everybody else's jerking at the light, you'll probably be the first one to leave if you're awake, because everybody else is alternating between impatience and going to sleep. But that impetus, that sort of neurotic need to get from here to there, colors our entire life. We're always looking past what's right in front of us. It's like I always trot this example out. It's like being at a party, talking to somebody, and you're having a good conversation, but from time to time you're looking over their shoulder at who else, more interesting maybe, might be coming into the room. It's so hard to just let all that go and give yourself completely to what's right in front of you. And that's kind of what we're learning to do by sitting, by doing Zazen, and by bringing awareness into our daily life. We find ourselves worrying about what's going to come next. So many people are worried about what may go wrong. What kind of disaster may play out. People may do something we don't like. It's just we're rather than just seeing what happens and then responding, we're worrying, sometimes with thoughts, sometimes just with tension. People go to therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, trying to make their lives a little more doable, a little more pleasant. And usually what they're looking for is, how can I make this not happen? What can I do? How can I game the system to make it happen? Anthony de Mello, the Jesuit priest many of you have heard from before, said this. He said, admit that your life is a mess. And the second thing to admit, it's a bit tougher, admit that you don't want to get out of it. you do not want to get out of the mess. Talk to any psychologist who's worth his name, and he'll confirm that. The last thing a client wants is a cure. He doesn't want a cure, he wants relief. Eric Berne, one of the great psychiatrists here in the United States, put it very graphically. He suggested you imagine a client who's up to his nose in a cesspool, okay, liquid excrement. And he's coming to the doctor, and you know what he's saying to him? He's asking the doctor, could you help me so people won't make waves? The client doesn't want to get out of the cesspool. No, just make it so they won't make waves. How do we get out of the cesspool? We have to change our approach. We have to stop wanting the things to be the way we want them to be and tune in to the way things are. As Ajahn Sumedho says, the teacher in the Thai Buddhist forest tradition says, right now it's like this. Finding that courage and creating the habit of just turning to the way things are and seeing what we can do with it. You know, it's like a bridge player. If you're playing duplicate bridge, you don't care if you have a good hand or a bad hand. You're basically competing on the basis of how well you play this hand, competing with other people who, in duplicate bridge, they get the same hand and they play it. And so it doesn't matter, you know, do you have good luck, do you have bad luck? It's what do you do with what you've got? Life changes to the extent that we can be okay with things as they are. And it's a skill that we can learn. It's a way in which the wise shape their minds. Spend a lot of time worrying about how we look. It's another really pernicious habit. Am I looking foolish here? Am I boring people? Do I have something in my teeth? There's just so many things that we can worry about. And it's painful, isn't it? To worry about our appearance or other people's opinions of us. There's basically two different approaches that have been identified apply to this. This is from a psychologist at Stanford named Carol Dweck, D-W-E-C-K. She writes, for 20 years, my research has shown that the view you adopt for yourself profoundly affects the way you lead your life. It can determine whether you become the person you want to be and whether you accomplish the things you value. So how does this happen? How does a simple belief have the power to transform your psychology and, as a result, your life? Then she lays the two out. Believing that your qualities are carved in stone, the fixed mindset, creates an urgency to prove yourself over and over. If you only have a certain amount of intelligence, a certain personality, a certain moral character, well, then you better prove that you have a healthy dose of them. It simply won't do to look or feel deficient in those most basic characteristics. I've seen so many people with this one consuming goal of proving themselves in the classroom, in their careers, in their relationships. Every situation calls for a confirmation of their intelligence. Their intelligence, personality, or character. Every situation is evaluated. Will I succeed or fail? Will I look smart or dumb? Will I be accepted or rejected? Will I feel like a winner or a loser? It's one of the good things about going to Doksan, I can say from my own experience, is just having to deal with that self-consciousness. that what will the teacher think of me? Teacher's just looking at you with his or her eyes open. There isn't a judgment really being made. But we're so wrapped up in what other people think of us, like a monkey getting its tail twisted. She says there's another mindset in which these traits are not simply a hand you're dealt with and have to live with, always trying to convince yourself and others that you have a royal flush when you're secretly worried it's a pair of tens. In this mindset, the hand you're dealt is just the starting point for development. This growth mindset is based on the belief that your basic qualities are things you can cultivate through your efforts. Although people may differ in every which way, in their initial talents and aptitudes, interests and temperaments, everyone can change and grow through application and experience. I remember standing up at a table in a restaurant once and not realizing it was bolted to the floor right near where my feet were. And all of a sudden I found myself with my center of gravity way outside my base of support. And there was no, physics took its course and I hit the deck. And I realized, something has changed because I didn't feel embarrassed. It was like, I fell down. Nobody really paid much attention. I just got back up and left the restaurant. Had something similar happen in Doksan more than once where I stood up and as I got up, I stepped on the back of my robe and went over backwards. It's not a problem. Teacher's okay with that. I've seen it myself, students coming into Doksan. It's like all those things that become such a big deal when you're not as invested in having to prove to someone else your worth. If you're just working with what you got, you're okay with that. Everything is so much easier and so much enjoyable. How do we make that change? It's just bit by bit, dropping a little bit at a time, sitting over years, moving through our lives with awareness, not lost in thoughts, not lost in worries, not lost in daydreams. We find it changes. Usually when people have been at this for some number of months, they begin to notice a few things that, this used to be a problem. Now it's not. I used to feel really, really antsy standing in line, and now it's okay. I'm just standing here. Another habit of mind that people have is shrinking from bad feelings. I used to periodically find myself in a really lousy mood and would wonder, how did I get here? A lot of times I could sort of trace back my day and realize, this was it. Somebody said something to me, or I did something wrong, or whatever, and then I buried it because it was painful. I covered it up, moved on, and let it eat at me. we really have a reluctance to suffer, to feel the pain that inevitably comes up, the pain that the Buddha pointed to, inevitable suffering in a human body with all its limitations, growing old. It's hard to imagine when you're young, but body doesn't do what it used to do. I do find it's enjoyable watching other people who can like bounce up from a prostration or kneel on the, there was somebody here yesterday fixing something, kneeling on the slate floor effortlessly. I thought, that's so cool. I remember when I could do that. But it's you know, we learn a lot when we just pay attention to how our mind works, and we learn how often we kind of do a shortcut around something that's a little difficult. We're always trying to make things easy. And when you notice that, that's one of the things about paying attention. When you notice it, and you don't immediately try to cover it up because you've got a fixed mind state rather than a growth mind state, if you're able to say, oh, that's actually kind of interesting, it can change. It's the project of a lifetime to just notice the ways that we do things wrong and gradually find a way to move more smoothly and gracefully and kindfully through our lives. Carl Jung, see if I can find this. Carl Jung said, neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. And a therapist named Bruce Tift, he's a psychotherapist and a Vajrayana Buddhist, was teaching, maybe still teaches at Naropa University in Boulder in Colorado, said about that quote from Jung, I agree with Jung, though I would say neurosis is always a substitute for emotional intensity. So rather than legitimate suffering, say experiential intensity. And he says, I say that because we tend to contract away not only from pain, but also from aliveness, from sexuality, from joy, from open awareness, and a number of other intense experiences. One of the things I like about Jung's understanding is that it characterizes neurosis as an activity of intelligence, not synonymous with wisdom. It's not pathological. It's not some pattern that blindly got put into place. It's not something that happened to us. It's what happens when we say, I would actually prefer not to feel this incredibly difficult, vulnerable, disturbing experience right now, so I'm going to try to go around it. I'll distract myself. I'll be self-aggressive. I'll get very activated. I'll get involved with parenting, with work. I'll learn to meditate and be calm. I'll exercise. He says we might try to get out of our immediate experience of intensity through any number of ways, and basically they all work in the short term. In the long run, neurotic habits, as we all know, of course, have a counterproductive effect because we're not dealing with the truth of our lives. Avoiding our difficult experience doesn't make it go away. In fact, avoiding basically diminishes our lives. You see really exaggerated examples of this with people with really severe anxiety disorder who can't leave their own home. Just stay in one room. All of us probably have this to one degree or another. One of the fruits of sincere work on oneself, whatever form it takes, is to gradually enlarge our lives be able to do more, to risk more, be willing to have things turn out however they turn out, stay awake in the process. Bruce Tift goes on with what he says. He says, in addressing neurotic or unnecessary suffering, the approach of traditional Western psychology is to address specific life issues, one after the other, trying to find the source of the dissatisfaction in repetitive, historically conditioned patterns. Is there a problem in our marriage, with our boss? Are we too invested in our kids' success? Perhaps it would be more direct to increase our willingness to consciously participate in any form of experiential intensity. It's basically, rather than looking at one particular problem, to just become a little more courageous, a little more open. He says, central to this effort is learning to recognize and challenge our lifelong aggression toward our vulnerabilities. Instead, learn to practice kindness towards them. When we approach our neurosis not as wrong, but as our best out-of-date effort to take care of ourselves, then our neurosis actually becomes more available to work with. So rather than attacking each life issue as if it were a problem, my intention is to invite awareness, presence, and kindness to all of our experience without exception. I think there's time to talk about one more habit, and that's the habit of tension. I think everybody carries a certain amount of tension with them. I know that I do. Joko Beck said, Joko Beck, the Zen teacher, life is a very simple matter. We're just doing what we're doing. But we add extra tension all the time. If you stop and feel your face, you'll notice it's usually a little bit tight. We don't need that tension. We have a face. We don't need an extra face. It's so useful periodically to just notice the tension that we're carrying and not notice it as an "oh shit," oh, damn it, I'm tense again. That doesn't play out well. It's just interesting. And it's easy to just relax into it a little bit. Approach it with that attitude of, I want to see how this works. I want to understand my life. I want to grow. I want to be somebody who can help other people. I want to be there for my family and my friends. Don't want to be wrapped up with myself. I've recommended to people just doing what's called a body scan, lying down on your back comfortably and just going through every part of your body. It's actually a really useful exercise, and noticing where you're tense. It has an effect if you do it repeatedly. It's something that John Kabat-Zinn recommends. There's a recording of him taking people through a body scan, and there are a number of others, some of them available for free on the internet. Sometimes if you find yourself unable to fall asleep wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning and for some reason you're revved up, got the wrong hormones going, a little too much cortisol for one reason or another. It's sometimes useful. There are two things you can do. One is get up and sit. I found that's amazing. You sit for half an hour maybe, and you go back down. At least I've found when I go back down, I just fall right asleep. The other thing you can do, if you don't want to get out of bed, is just lay on your back, hands at your side, and just let the body relax. Don't be in a hurry to fall asleep. That desire to have things go the way you want is the problem. It's amazing how much rest you can get even though you actually don't lose consciousness. And it's amazing, too, that sometimes people actually do fall asleep, but they don't think they ever did. So that's what I was doing last night. I got to bed early thinking, okay, I'm going to get up early and work on this talk. And yeah, about 2 o'clock I woke up. And I followed my advice and lived to tell the tale. Well, I have a lot more material. Maybe this will be visited on you some other Sunday, but I think at this point our time is up, and we'll stop here and recite the 4 vows.